Oh my goodness, you guys. I have literally recorded chapter one 3 times now. For some reason, nothing is uploading when you're using the recording for on Canvas. So here I go for the third time on chapter one. Okay, so chapter one is your introduction to psychology. We were reviewing the classical study approaches, what psychology is about, who's our founding fathers, as well as the different categories of psychology that you can use. So for this one, you guys have already answered this in class. Is psychology a science? We all agreed that yes, psychology is a science because we can study and measure behaviors in order to see behaviors to see if it's based off of an environment or a chemical component that might be imbalancing us. So for this, psychology is a science because we use a scientific study of behavior and our mental processes. So like I said, we use chemical imbalances, medical trauma to the brain. So if you hit your head too hard, you're more likely to act a certain way or be able to forget things easier. Like a stroke victim. My mother-in-law had a stroke and it affected her left side of the brain and her body. So she's unable to really remember things. She has a hard time speaking or she gets confused when she says something. So we use a scientific method in order to acquire this knowledge. We have 5 different steps, which most of you already kind of knew the gist of it. So our first one is our observe and theorize. We're going to observe our clients or subjects who we're observing in order to gain an understanding of what they do and why they do it. We have different methods of our observation, which we'll go into further detail a little bit later on within the chapter. So for this one, we're observing a child in a playground setting to see when they end up acting out or why they hit the people that they do. So we're going to observe them, so they're not going to notice that we're there, but we're going to be watching them throughout the entire time. We're going to formulate a hypothesis. So this is a specific prediction that can be tested by empirical data. Based on observing the subject, this is why this is occurring. So we watched little Johnny get pushed around by the older group of people over here because the older group of people has this big brother in it. So they push him around, they call him names, and make fun of him. So then when Johnny gets to his class, he's a little bit bigger than the normal kids over there. So he's going to act out towards them. He's going to hit them. He's going to make fun of them because that's what his brother and his brother's friends did to him. So he's now taking it out onto people that are smaller than him in order to feel a little bit more superior sometimes. So little Johnny is hurting or behaving in a certain way because of his environment that he's with at home or around his brother and his friends. We're going to design a study. So for this, we can drive little Johnny to school and keep him just by his own age group and not by his brother and his friends to see if there's a positive correlation as to the two components being put together. Because maybe if Johnny wasn't by his brother and his brother's friends, then maybe Johnny wouldn't have the need or feeling to act out to the younger people around him. So when we did our experiment, we're going to actually collect our data and we're going to analyze it. So we're going to put all of our data in one little group. We're going to make our pie charts, our graphs, whatever way you're going to be doing it. Your interviews, we're going to put them all together and put our data next to it. And then we're going to analyze it. So is it correct? And then we're going to take this analysis and apply it towards our hypothesis. This is where, based on the data collected, it is proven that there's a positive correlation between Johnny acting out towards younger people or smaller people than him because his brother is a jerk and his friends are jerks and they take it out on him. So he feels that he needs to take out aggression to other people. And replication is very important in a study. This is to make sure that it's actually legit study. It can be repeated. We can see some of the same positive correlations if we use it in a different scenario. If it's not, then if our hypothesis is debunked, then we have to start all over again and come up with a new theory or hypothesis to prove our issue. We have 4 different goals to psychology. This is going to be on your quiz, so you might want to go ahead and write these down. We have description, explanation, prediction, and our influences. For your description, it just describes a mental process or behavior as accurately as possible. For this example, in your textbook, it's calculate average video game scores versus males and females. Our explanation suggests causes for behaviors and mental processes of interest. So this is saying that the males are going to score higher because they play video games more than the females do. Our prediction is specific. Can't even talk anymore after doing so many of these. Is specific conditions under which behavior or mental processes is likely to occur. So if we hypothesize that males and females will obtain equivalent playing games at the same time, that they'll be the same in the end. So if males and females are sitting in front of a TV the same amount of time every single day for the same amount of hours, then they'll both be equal in their scoring. Your influences. So apply the results of a study to change a condition in order to bring about a desired real-world outcome or prevent an undesirable real-world outcome. So instead of playing video games that is picking up hookers on the side of the street or stealing cars or shooting people's heads off, then maybe we might play games that are more about real-world concerns. So math or stuff, or learning different games, how to change your vehicle's oil or tire. That might be a good game to have in order to actually apply it to real world life. Since we're so consumed with our video games and electronics, it might be helpful in order to create these certain things in order to help benefit us in the future. So make sure you know the 4 different goals to psychology, which are description, explanation, prediction, and influences. In psychology, with our goals, we have our basic research, which is seeking new knowledge. So it advances general scientific understanding. And then we have our applied research, which is solving practical problems. So we're improving the quality of life that we have. Okay, another big one that's on your quiz that's always missed for some reason. William Wundt. He is our father of psychology, so he is our baby daddy. So William Wundt was born in 1832 and died in 1920. With him, it's not because he was the first person to use psychology as a field in order to diagnose or treat a certain subject. He was the first person to actually come up with a laboratory in Leipzig, Germany, which was developed in 1879. His development was based off of introspection. So again, it wasn't because William Wundt was the first person to use psychology. He was the first person to actually apply it in a laboratory setting. Under William Wundt, Edward Titchener actually was under William Wundt. He studied under Wundt. His established psychology laboratory he developed in Cornell University in the States. So he named his school the thought of structuralism. Structuralism was a little bit more abrasive. It was criticized for the primary method of introspection. So he is saying that if we are not objective, then we can't really prove a behavior is occurring in a certain way because we would just put everybody in a laboratory setting and we are being watched. So if you act differently when you're being watched, I know that if I'm being watched, I'm watching my P's and Q's so I don't get in trouble. So he established the field of psychology as a science. He was able to explore the behavior, come up with a hypothesis, and develop a study in order to modify or increase or decrease the behavior that we are seeing. Functionalism, this is based off of the Darwin theory. So how we've learned from our past, we make changes for our future, and our present state of knowledge is a little bit better. So with me, I've learned from my past. I don't drink as much. I definitely don't do any nasty, illicit things anymore. That was way back in the past. I have learned from my mistakes and I was able to move forward and grow as an individual. I was able to get a really good job. I was able to marry my husband. I was able to have 2 wonderful kids, and I'm pretty much rocking it right now. I'm alive and I'm happy and healthy. So I have learned from my stupid mistakes and I was able to benefit from those, and I'm able to teach you guys the stupid things that I've gone through and done, and hopefully it will help you understand that yes, we do make mistakes, but we need to learn from them and grow from them and move forward. Don't just stay in that state of mind because you're always going to be stuck. You can do better. You are better. So William James, he's the one that was the main advocate for functionalism. So he clarified definition of mental processes by the fluidity, continuity, and not the rigid fixed structure suggested by structuralists. With functionalism, we're not just studying white males that are older. We're allowed to study children, animals, the mentally impaired, because sometimes the mentally impaired used to be diagnosed incorrectly and treated incorrectly, which was really sad. So we're blessed nowadays to have the capabilities of learning and diagnosing our clients in the correct manner. But in like 60 or 70 years, they're going to talk about us being jokes too. So it just is what it is. There is a video on slide 25 in your files, and it will help explain structuralism and functionalism as a different approach. It's actually kind of funny. So you can go ahead and watch it if you want to. We are going to go into the school of thoughts and psychology. There are several. We're going to touch base on quite a few of them because they're going to be on your test. So we're going to start off with behavioralism. John Watson was our biggest component of behavioralism. He was the science of behavior. So we are able to observe, measure, and then appropriate subject matters and to test them in order to stop the behavior or increase the behavior that we're wanting. So he determined that environment is the key determinant of our behavior. So like I said with little Johnny, he was being picked on by his brother and his brother's friends, so he was acting the way that he was to other people in his own class size that may be smaller than him. So his environment made him a little bit more aggressive in order to take out his probably anger and just being pissed off of being picked on and towards other people. So this was the most influential school of thought in the 1960s. Skinner, B.F. Skinner, he said that mind, conscious, and feelings are neither objective or measurable. So it's not appropriate subject matter for psychology. So Skinner's key points were operant conditioning. So he emphasized the importance of reinforcement in learning, shaping, and maintaining a behavior. So say everyone's just going cattywampus and just screaming out answers, and I'm like, okay, no, this has to stop. If you raise your hand, I will give you 5 points extra credit every single time you raise your hand. And so everybody that raised their hand got a ticket for 5 point extra credit. Now, if you blurted out the answer, I'm going to take away five points from your final grade. So later on, it's going to be operant condition. It's going to be conditioned inside of you to always raise your hand because you know that it's the right thing to do, and you're going to get extra points. Now, those extra points are not going to last throughout the whole semester. It's going to continuously phase out because I'm not going to always give you something when you're supposed to be doing that in the first place. So behaviors that are reinforced are likely to be repeated. This is another one that's going to be on your quiz. B.F. Skinner studied behavioralism the most. So I know it's weird, but it's going to say, who studied behavioralism the most? And you're going to say, B.F. Skinner. Got it. Check. Our next one is psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis was brought to you by Sigmund Freud, one of my favorites. He is a little bit bonkers, and I love him. So psychoanalysis is the treatment method for psychological disorders. So on your quiz, it might say, who developed psychoanalysis? And you're going to say Sigmund Freud. Your psychoanalytic theory, individuals' thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are determined primarily by the unconscious state. So say, unfortunately, you were sexually abused as a child continuously, and it has caused you deep depression, social anxiety, not having the capability to trust others and be loved back. So with Sigmund Freud, he would sit you down on a bed, and he's going to unlock those hidden memories that are way back in your unconscious state to bring it back to the surface. A lot of people that have gone through psychoanalysis, it's very, very hard on them. It's continuous. It's multiple times a week that you're going to have to go into the office to make sure you're okay and you're adapting to reliving those memories that you don't want to relive. We lock away very, very sad things or bad things that happened to us way back in our brain because we don't want to relive them. We don't want to feel that feeling again. So it's like Inside Out, the movie with Bing Bong. I don't know if you've ever watched that. But with this one, she had a different level of consciousness. And her different level of consciousness, she had the vacuum in it. She had the scary clown. She had the broccoli in it. She had different areas in her brain that scared her like crazy, so she locked it away down inside. She had guards in front of it, so it wouldn't be able to come out. So when Bing Bong and the other ones opened up that cave, all of her scary memories came out, and she woke up. She was scared, and she was startled because those things came back to the surface. So with your psychoanalysis, that actually brings it back to the surface, just like unlocking that door. Your humanistic psychology, I want you to know that Abraham Maslow was one of the most key contributors to this theory. Abraham Maslow developed the hierarchy of needs. So you remember that pyramid that you probably learned in the past, where you have to meet your basic levels in order to get to the next step. You have to beat your trust and your shelter and your safety to be able to be loved and loved back. So we have to meet all these levels until we get to the top. The top we're always reaching for because we're never actually hitting our highest potential. So that will always be a goal to be reaching. You always want to better yourself. We're going to be going over this in chapter 9, and your groups, one of your groups, are going to be taking care of this lesson. Okay. Evolutionary psychology. This is our human behaviors necessary for survival. So this is like the strongest will survive, the weakest will die. This is just how we survive in our lives. So human behaviors are necessary for survival. So it's how behaviors adapted in the face of environmental pressures over the course of evolution. So think of Darwin's theory when we come up with that one. Okay, we have a bunch of specialties in psychology too. So we have our clinical psychologists. So I want you to know for your quiz, like diagnose and treat mental and behavioral disorders, you are going to be a clinical psychologist. You're a school psychologist, diagnose and treat learning and behavioral problems interfering with learning. Your forensic psychologists are going to be working with psychology and the law. So Criminal Minds or Mind Hunters is a really good one on Netflix that you should watch. It's one of my favorites. You have your counseling psychologists that are handling not as difficult psychosis as a clinical psychologist, but this is more of your talk therapy. This is your couples therapy, your group therapy, your family therapy, your individual therapy that you have on a regular occasion to talk through certain things and events. Your physiological psychologists study the relationship between physiological processes and behaviors. Your experimental conduct research in memory, sensation, perception, motivation, and emotion. Developmental is your developmental time frame. So from conception to death, if something has happened inside the uterus when we were born, it may cause a certain feeling for in our childhood and adolescence, and how we can treat that. Your educational psychologists are specialized in the study of teaching and learning. Okay. Evaluate and research. Our critical thoughts. So independent thinking. Don't be gullible. Think for yourself and actually think through some things that are people telling you. Be like, really? No way. Be smart. Suspension of judgment. So sometimes it's easier said than done. I know that I would rather think that I'm above it and I am not stupid enough to believe certain things, but I do. And it's easier said than done in order to stop judgment. So if your friend's like, Becky cheated on her husband, you're like, that biznatch. She did not go there. Well, she did, but in all reality, she didn't cheat at all. She just went out on a dinner date with a group of friends from work. So she didn't cheat, but sometimes you're gullible and you have judgment on people. Sucks. That's life. Okay, for our measures in order to have research methods, we have naturalistic and laboratory observation, which your naturalistic is observing a subject in their own natural state. So little Johnny in the playground, we were able to observe him in his naturalistic setting in order to get a key understanding of why he acts out the way he does. Our case studies go back into the time frame of, job, socioeconomic class, family, lifestyle. So we observe the whole life of a subject. Your survey research is based off of surveys and how they correlate against this certain group of environment, and your correlational studies. So your correlational studies is when I eat too much sugar, I turn into a crazy woman. There's a positive correlation there. So too much sugar equals me to be crazy, or too much caffeine makes me be a little jittery. It's a positive correlation. With our studies, when we do develop a study, we have our independent variable, our dependent variable, and our controlled variables. Your independent variable is what you can change. Your dependent variable is what you see or what you observe, and your controlled variable is what you kept the same. So for this one, your independent variables, a factor or condition that deliberately manipulated, so can you change? Dependent, a factor, condition, measure to determine the impact of experimental manipulation. So say experimental group. So this is exercise plus diet, pills reduce weight loss. So you're exposing an independent variable. So we're actually including a pill in order to cause weight loss to occur. Your controlled group are having exposed to the same experimental variable but not given the independent variable. So instead of giving the pill, they're only exercise only, so they can't have that magical pill. You're comparing experiments on control groups. So researchers judge effects of independent variables compared to outcomes that occur naturally in life. With random assignment, this one's going to be on your quiz. Random assignment is controlled for selection bias. So we control selection bias by random assignment. So we put all the names in a hat and we have them pick. So I'm going to pick this one, this one, this one, this one. I don't know what these people are or how much they weigh or what they look like or if they're male or female. I'm just going to pick out of this bag. So it's a random assignment. So instead of having a weight loss challenge and I'm just picking everybody that's 400 pounds because I want the most fat loss ratio, rather than my other scientist that has everyone that's 120 pounds. So I'm going to lose more fat in this group than this group because 400 pounders have more fat to lose than the 120 pounders kind of thing. So this makes it even out across the board. Your double-blind technique. Think of Gray's Anatomy for the Alzheimer's study. So the double-blind technique is to ensure that all parties pretty much don't know anything. For this study, for Alzheimer's study, neither the surgeons, the participants, or the nurses, nobody knew who actually got the real medication and who got the placebo medication. The placebo is just the fake medicine. So with this one, we couldn't have that selection bias because nobody knew what was going on. So your double-blind technique is nobody knows what's going on besides the laboratory actually knew. But with this one, Dr. Gray, she went in and switched the vial, so the other doctor's wife had the actual Alzheimer's medication, which in this case, it kind of debunked the whole entire experiment because it wasn't unbiased at that point. So make sure you know the double-blind technique eliminates the biasness. It's controlling it. On your last slide, it's the APA requirements. Your APA stands for American Psychological Association. You'll have to pick 2 of these for your case study. We'll talk about this later on in our semester when we come closer to it, but you have to pick 2. Now, they're very important that you pick 2 or you're going to be docked with your points, so make sure you have those down in your paper. All right, I'm going to conclude chapter 1, and hopefully this uploads because I'm not doing it yet. Bye.